DX has already formed at this point with Shawn Michaels, Triple H, and China. And when DX itself is originally formed, what did you think of that combination coming together? That picture's unbelievable of Shawn with the belt naked.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Look, we were all like envious of their position, you know what I mean, or their spot. You call it whatever you want to, but where they were on the television show, where they were on the card, their importance. You know what I mean? Like everybody was a little envious professionally, for sure. Um, and dang, I would have given anything to be with them, because I didn't know it was a possibility until it was. You know?
As someone who has such sarcasm, energy, humor, fun, jovial sense, and all of that, as you saw their antics increasing and pushing the boundaries and tiptoeing over the edge of what was previously allowed to be done, did it get you a little bit more jazzed up, excited for possibilities of what you'd be able to do as a character or what you'd be able to say?
Yeah, 100%. And look, I implemented that luxury, I guess, in all of my promos. Like I would take it a little too far. I would go farther than maybe I would have 2 years prior. You know what I mean? Like it got to a point where okay, they're kind of leading the way and they're being nasty. Maybe I can be a little nastier in my promo. And that look, that's looking back on it in retrospect, it's not something I'm really proud of. My grandchildren will watch that and go, "Hey, Papa, you were a real son of a." But you know, I did. They were leading the way, and so I thought, okay, well, so if they can play, maybe I can play too. And so, yeah, it made me realize, okay, we can push the envelope, and that's what Billy and I started doing. You know what I mean? Quickly.
Dusty Rhodes always talked to me about tiptoeing up to the line and then slowly crossing the line. And if you go too far, someone slaps your toe and you pull it back a little bit until you cross that line again.
Yeah,
And it was just
amen.
always that thing of trying to push the boundaries and take yourself up to a new level and open the door for newer opportunities that hadn't been seen.
Yeah, and look, I think at that point too, it was a personally owned company. You know what I mean? It wasn't privately owned, so he could do whatever he wanted to, and he could also produce whatever rated television show he would produce. You know, because you know you're going to get sponsors. They just might not be blue chip sponsors. They might not be. You know.
Not getting the Snickers deals and
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
now.
Snickers, M&M, whatever. You know what I
Yep.
mean? But they were still getting sponsors. That's for sure.
What was your relationship like at that time with Sean Hunter and China?
So it was good. You know, I was really lucky in the sense that Sean took a liking to me early on. Sean had a lot to do with me becoming the roadie for Jeff Jarrett. Like he really spoke up for me during that period of my career, like early on. And so I knew Sean and we got along well. Um, you know, I knew Hunter from WCW when he was terrorizing and I was Brian Armstrong and we were, you know what I mean? We worked there for probably a year. So we had a good relationship and China had just come on, but she fit right in, man. She was such a trooper and such a good sport and funny. And man, she just fit right in with us. It was awesome. So yeah, my relationship with those guys were all positive. They still are, to be quite honest with you. Um, Sean was a different guy than he is today. So am I. You know what I mean? So are you, I would imagine,
Yep.
than
Growth,
when you were
maturity,
than when you
age.
were yeah, sophomore in college or whatever. But you know, we always got along. And sometimes I wanted to fight him, and I'll never forget Scott Hall, God rest his soul, saying, "Man, you can't beat up my meal ticket." And and I loved it because look, at that time, Sean was the meal ticket. You know what I mean? He really was. He was on top, and and sometimes he acted that way. And so you get mad, and you go, well, you know, only people who can back it up can act that way. And he could, he
And it's
could.
something I think you really need to have. I mean, we talked the ego, but you need to have that ego to have success at the top level.
If
Like,
you're on top, if you're a top guy, which is those two words are thrown around a lot here in wrestling these days too. But if you're really the top guy, it is like being a mad scientist. You know what I mean? Every genius is a little quirky. Every artist is a little eccentric, and that's kind of what you need in that top guy. He's got to have that top guy mentality. And look, that's one of the reasons I was I wasn't a top guy, but I was the top guy's understudy or something, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what analogy to utilize, for that, but I always saw myself as, like, me
Top
and Bill.
guy adjacent.
Yeah, yeah, that's there it is. TGA. That's exactly what I was. Well put. I think me and Billy together made a top guy. You know what I mean? We made an act that could close the show. That's for dang
Absolutely.
sure.
Absolutely.
And that yeah. So my relationship with those guys was really good.
The Royal Rumble in Fresno, everything started changing again. First off, you take on the LOD and you guys retain again via DQ. We got into the fact that these things are
Yeah,
big to protect teams, and this
yeah,
is good. But then as we keep going, later that night, Shawn Michaels takes a backdrop over the top rope and lands on the Undertaker's casket in the casket match. You guys were out there at that in that match. Do you remember seeing it at the time and thinking that something didn't look right about that bump, or is it something that took a little time to realize, hey, that's not just a little, soreness and
yeah, yeah.
there's a problem.
Look, as soon as Sean took all kind of crazy bumps. Sean took dropped elbows on tables off the ring apron, you know what I mean, or the turnbuckle. Like he took a lot of bumps that looked like, oh God, that just killed him. So to me, it was just one of those. But then you can see shortly after him favoring it, you know what I mean, and not moving so well. And that's when you can kind of tell from a performer's standpoint. It's like, oh man, he might have done something. I don't know what it was, but something's going on. And so yeah, we didn't know the severity of it at the time, but we knew it hurt him. You know, we could tell that.